Good evening, good afternoon, everyone. I want everyone's attention because I know I have some people in the back who are listening to anything. Right? Hello in the back. So I'm gonna get by 3 of those t-shirts and ask questions. And anyone answering them correctly will get 1. You ready? Anybody listening in the back? Yes. Cool. I'll leave the t-shirts for last. So let me ask you the questions. Who is the president of CARI-ON? No man, you can't be CARI-ON and answer the question. Who's the president of CARI-ON? Who's the first person to answer? Second question, what is the agency in St. Vincent responsible for natural disasters? No, I need somebody to do this for me, man. Somebody need to pick the winners. So Hayden, pick the winners. Who just answered me?
Right here.
Who is the Consul General of Grenada? Hello? So you weren't listening? That's my point. The gentleman has a name.
Right here.
Ambassador. Who's the Consul General of Grenada? Alright, so Hayden, you tell me who the winners are after.
Okay.
I just want to recognize the Consul General of Grenada, the members of the various disaster groups from Grenada and I think Guyana, they left. The Gideon Exeter, a man who has done a lot of good work in getting us to where we are today, making sure he came to the Caribbean Council Corps and their presentation, and we bought the idea, and then we're here where we are seeing CARI-ON being launched, Grenada launched before, and Dominica. And the reason why we are here, I also want to recognize that table with the SVG support group, a group that supports everything Vincent, and I want to recognize you for doing all the hard work you've done to making St. Vincent a better place and the Grenadines a better place. Did I miss any protocol? And most of all, the people who were spending their valuable Sunday afternoon with us, we want to thank you for considering this launch as part of your Sunday. Thank you for coming out. It is my pleasure to deliver this presentation today as I address you as the Consul General of St. Vincent and the Grenadines. I want to congratulate CARI-ON for having us out here today and for what they're doing for disaster preparedness, disaster response. But I kind of want us to focus as a group more on disaster preparedness, because if we're prepared, then we will not be responding, more than likely. Some of these things we have really no control over. And I don't want to be talking about Canadian politics here, but this is the election period. A lot of you are Canadian citizens. I want members of the group to focus mainly on their advocacy program. When they come knocking on your doors looking for their votes, ask them, what is your program for climate change? Because climate change is real and is an existential problem. I have a mint in my morning for our Caribbean, our small island developing states. Since the advent of industrialization, we have seen an attack on the environment, serious attack on the environment. We have seen our greenhouse gases, which are naturally there to protect us from and to protect the ozone layer. You should Google the ozone layer. What it really means is that it's a layer that sits in the atmosphere that protects us from the direct rays of the sun. We have seen a depletion of that ozone layer. We have seen the sun bearing down on our backs. You've heard of people in the Caribbean during the summer complaining of of excess heat. Place is so hot. Place is so hot. I mean, we can't even breathe. Everybody wishing for the night to come. Because greenhouse gases are there to protect us. And because of the advent of industrialization, we are depleting the ozone layer. Hence, it seems as if climate change is real. It seems as if these excess heat conditions, excess snow, excess extreme hurricanes, they are now real, very real, and they are affecting our GDP, our gross domestic product of all the islands. So we have to do more advocacy. These are the industrialized countries, small and developing states. We are just the recipient of what's produced. Yet, when they make the monies in these big countries, we are seeing the consequences of all the things that they are doing to make the money. So we have to be advocates against climate change, or for climate, to make sure our governments address the issues of climate change. The United Nations define climate change as the rise of the average surface temperature of the earth due mainly to increased burning of fossil fuel. Fossil fuel mainly comes from petrol, burning of fossil fuel. So for example, when you buy your F-150, somebody talk about you have an F-150. I don't know. So when you buy those big vehicles and big gas guzzlers, more you fill up, more air conditioning you use, you're burning more fossil fuel, you are actually contributing to the issues that cause climate change. Okay? The United Nations have this to say about climate change. It says, climate change is a defining issue of our time, and we are at a defining moment. From shifting weather patterns that threaten food production to rising sea level that increase the risk of catastrophic flooding, the impacts of climate change are global in scope and unprecedented in scale. Without drastic action today, adapting to these impacts in the future will be more difficult and costly. Well, we know about the costly impact of climate change. We saw in 2013 when we had a trough system passing through St. Vincent on the 24th of December. We saw we lost 17% of our GDP in just 2 hours of rain. Lives were lost, properties were damaged, bridges were washed away. When we lose 17% of our GDP, we are actually borrowing money from lending agencies to build some of the things like bridges and schools and those things that make up our GDP. We have to go and borrow money again to replace it. So we're not adding to the GDP when it is destroyed, we are just replacing it. We have seen Irma in Dominica, they lost 246% of their GDP. That means they lost more than actually what they are producing. That is an effect, an impact of what climate change is doing to our small island developing states. But we are not contributing to it. We contribute very little. Because we don't make cars. I don't think we make air conditioning units. We don't, for most parts, make these plastic glasses and bottles and make it, we're not big users of them. But what we see is the impact of what these things cause affecting us. Sea level rising, global warming. We talk about glaciers melting. When a glacier melts and drops into the ocean, it causes the sea level to rise. Okay? Because it's as if sheer volume of these things cause sea level rises. We know we have lots of low-lying areas in Grenada, in St. Vincent and the Grenadines. And these seawater is now encroaching on our low-lying areas. CARI-ON, for example, it's a low-lying area. We have places like Sandy Bay. Well, all of our towns in St. Vincent are in low-lying areas. And if we're not careful, we may have to start moving some of our people from low-lying areas into the mountains. And you know the problem that's going to create when you move them into the mountains, you have to cut the trees to build the houses. When you cut the trees, if you don't replant the trees, we know the effect when the rain falls. The roots of the trees helps to dissipate, take the water into the soil. If you cut the trees, that water, instead of going into the soil, it runs off. On the surface, it gets into our rivers. The rivers get swollen. The banks get eroded, and these are the problems. Banks get eroded, people downstream. If you dump some white goods or old fridge in the mountains, if you don't dispose of it properly, it ends up in someone's backyard downstream. I remember there's a joke that one guy in Choppins dumped a fridge in a little stream close to where I live. When the rain fell and overflowed his bank in CARI-ON, he came and he recognized the fridge several years later. So these are the real problems. So deforestation. Guys going to plant a little weed in the hills, they cut and slash and burn, they don't replant a tree. We got to, and I talk about advocacy, so these are the things we have to do to make sure we tell people, if you're going to build a house and you have to remove trees, replant a couple trees. We hear about the Amazon is burning. The Amazon produces 20% of the world's oxygen. Now, if certain governments do not believe in climate change and they allow it to burn, you know what's going to happen. Where are we going to get that 20% of our oxygen from? If that forest is burning. So we have to advocate. We have to tell our governments, we are not supporting this. You have to go to places like the United Nations. Right now, the United Nations is going to meet next week, and I know for sure climate change is going to be a big topic. And many of our countries will be making speeches to talk about how we support climate change. I know in Grenada, it's a big topic. In St. Vincent, it's a big topic. In fact, when we won the United Nations seat for national security, 185 countries voted for us, 6 against. And the 6 countries who voted against us, I'm sure they all support our campaign. And one of the pillars of our campaign was to support the issues of global warming and climate change. So 185 countries support our position on that pillar only. There are other things I wouldn't talk about because we're here talking really about effects of climate change on small island developing states, and in particular, our Caribbean islands. So we are here, and we know the effects of Dorian caused, and I have to say now that Dorian is my first name. I'm not even proud of it. But I think it's time that the people who name these storms, though, seriously, consider calling the storms after the alphabetical letter plus the year. So instead of saying Dorian, you should say Hurricane D19. In other words, right. You know, because many of you will not be proud to be named Dorian after the disaster, or even Karen, because I don't even know if Karen is going to end up. But it seems as if for this conversation, Grenada had quite a bit of flooding from Karen. Tobago had some flooding. I'm still waiting for the reports from St. Vincent and the Grenadines. But it seems as if the 2 o'clock report says that it was basically a 12.7 latitude to 60 longitude, which means it's west-southwest of St. Vincent and headed into the Caribbean Sea. And I'm just waiting to make sure that we don't have to, as CARI-ON, that is, have to do our first fundraiser to support St. Vincent. All right, guys? Right. So let's pray and hope that nothing serious happens. But some of the things that we always have to look at as people living in Canada or in the diaspora is where, just some basic things, like where are we located? When a storm, when you monitor, and when does the hurricane season start? When does it end? We should know these things as we know John 3:16. Everybody know John 3:16? Good. Everybody know John 11:35, Jesus' word. So, as Caribbean people, first generation, second generation Caribbean people, we should be very concerned about hurricane season. It's a real problem. It starts in June, it ends in November. Seems as if it goes on forever. In particular, in St. Vincent, we have two volcanoes. Nobody talk about Kikumjini. That sits between Grenada and St. Vincent. That's an undersea volcano. That also is an existential threat to our development. Miss John Shelley came up here and talked about tourism and our tourism product. Everybody knows that when you remove sand from the beach and the seawater rises and it removes the fat pork and the grape trees, it takes away the natural defense of the beach. And everybody knows that, or should know, that if that beach is washed away, our tourism product would be impacted negatively. When Shelley came up and talked about the diverse product that we have in St. Vincent and the Grenadines, these are the things that we should bear in mind. We should be advocates for and tell our governments that we support climate change. We support the issues, the things that we are doing to make sure climate change doesn't have a negative impact on our islands. I don't want to be dead and gone and my kids and grandkids can't find a beach to go to or a tree to sit under in the mountains. We have to look at issues of deforestation, desertification. People might say, but the Caribbean don't have deserts. But if we encourage people to slash and burn, like what happens in Haiti, for example. People slash, burn, make holes, and we end up with other problems. We end up with a lot of problems of flooding in particular. So we have to do more to take care of our own surroundings and of our own environment. We may be contributing very little. I'm speaking, I know I'm going live. We maybe think that we are contributing very little. But every time we cut a tree, please replant it. Every time you see someone removing beach from the sand, ask them to stop. Sand from the beach, ask them to please stop it. And we have to be more mindful of protecting our surroundings. We have to look after what we have and protect it. Right now, people might be wondering, so what are you doing in St. Vincent in terms of protecting the environment? Well, we are embarking on geothermal exploration. Means that we are going into the soil, into the earth, to look for energy to feed the country. Hence, if we are successful, we will be importing less of that fossil fuel to fuel generation of electricity. That will help us to save foreign exchange, keep that money home, to do other things. So geothermal is one thing. We have rivers in St. Vincent, and we are tapping those rivers. We have 3 hydro generation plants, South Rivers, Cumberland, and Richmond. that's contributing up to about 20% of our electricity. We are doing solar. We have quite a lot of solar plants. So we are doing our little bit to reduce our fossil fuel impact in our country. So we're doing things that are being recognized by many agencies worldwide for doing these projects in St. Vincent. So I don't know if you have any questions, but I know our Prime Minister, he is at the UN this week, and I encourage you to listen to his presentation. I know he will be on his agenda would be the issues of climate change and the impact of climate change on small island developing states like St. Vincent and the Grenadines. I know after 10 minutes you pretty much shut off because we've been here for a long time. So I want to thank you for listening. I want to thank you for showing up and supporting this worthy cause. I want to encourage the people from CARI-ON to offer themselves as volunteers to Global Medics and Global Fire, because they do a tremendous job in supporting countries affected by hurricane storms, disasters, pretty much. So with that, I want to say thank you again for listening. I hope I have shed some light and some information that may make you a bit more informed. And if there are any questions, I'll take them quickly. Other than that, I'll just have a seat next to my friend Derek James. Any questions? Hello? No questions? That means I was that good? Or that bad?
Good.
Thank you for listening.